Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a well known and respected author from Noida, India, Mr. Rajesh Talwar. Rajesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Very pleased to be here with you.
Thank you. Rajesh is an author of a book titled Bollywood, Hollywood, and the Future of World Cinema. He's an international award winning author, and we're going to be speaking about his book today. But Rajesh, before we come to your book, a few questions for you. You have written across so many different genres from law to children's literature. What first drew you to storytelling as a lifelong pursuit?
Um, I think that, in the school, I was not very bright as a student. I was generally little above or below the halfway mark.
Mm-hmm.
So in a class of 50 students, I used to be either 25th or 26th. But then I think it was the 10th standard, they introduced an essay class.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I shot up at the top of the class.
Mm-hmm.
So even the toppers, they were astonished. And of course, the backbenchers, I was partly a backbencher, they were also astonished.
Mm-hmm.
They said, what happened to this guy? So I had been reading a lot. There were lots of books in the house. My mother was a great reader. My father used to read as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read across a wide range of classical fiction, popular fiction, and I was doing so well in the essay and the storytelling that I think it all began from there.
Oh, interesting. And you also, while pursuing writing, you also worked with the United Nations across different continents. How did that shape your worldview as a writer?
Well, two things here. Firstly, or maybe three things. Firstly, I have to give credit to writing to have joined the UN in a way, because it all began with my studies at Nottingham. The British Chevening scholarship had just begun, and they had advertised in the Hindu newspaper. So I applied for it, and they were looking for an academic lawyer. And there were many more successful lawyers than me who had applied. But I had some academic background. I was teaching while practicing law. I was teaching at Jamia Millia and then Delhi University. And then I had written many articles, but I had also written 2 books. And it was very fortunate because it was the last date when I submitted my application. They had said it can only be 2 pages, the CV. And fortunately, I asked the lady, I said, can I add my books? And she said, yes, there's no, and extras can be as many as you like. So I added 2 of my books, and one of them had been reviewed very favorably by Kushwant Singh. So I went in, and the ambassador who was chairing the interview, eventually, he was holding a copy of my book in his hand, and he had opened it, and he nodded to his committee members as if to say, this is a strong candidate. So the books got me in to Nottingham.
How interesting. How interesting.
Yes. And then when I finished Nottingham, I went for an interview just by chance. I was in Geneva for a conference, and they were having interviews in the Palais des Nations. Nottingham and the books, they sold it for me to the UN, and I got my very first assignment there. So, you know, this adage or this, some people quote Samuel Johnson, the 16th century writer, that no man but a blockhead ever wrote books except for money. I am a believer in the complete opposite.
Amazing.
That, yes,
That's
books. So books have been responsible in a way for my scholarship to Nottingham and for my subsequent employment with the UN, and for a long career, because I worked with the United Nations for over 20 years across 3 continents, mostly in war zones, Somalia, Liberia, Kosovo, and all those places were rich storytelling environments.
Correct.
So two of my fictional works are based in Afghanistan. One
Mm.
of them is based in England. Uh, so my travels have enriched my writing, I would say, and my work with the United Nations also has.
Oh, fascinating. Let's come to your book that we are going to talk about today, which is Bollywood, Hollywood, and the Future of World Cinema. And let me start by asking you, what was the inspiration to write this book at this particular moment? How do you define Bollywood and Hollywood today?
That's a very good question. Let me show your audience just a copy of the book. This is the book.
Yeah.
And Bollywood, Hollywood, and the Future of World Cinema. So I have been interested in cinema, like most of us.
Hmm.
It was during the years when we were growing up, the singular form of entertainment.
Yeah.
And the other forms of entertainment have come in now, where people are scrolling in through their phones all the time
Mm.
and watching reels and videos like this one. Hopefully, people do watch this.
Mm.
But we had cinema, so cinema was a very big influence on me. And while working in the UN, we get lots of holidays because we are in these stressful areas where bomb blasts are taking place,
Mm.
where attacks are taking place. So they are very kind to us. They give us a lot of holidays.
Mm.
And when I was in Kosovo, former Yugoslavia, England was just an hour's flight away. And during a break, I took a course, a short course, a 1 month course in filmmaking at the London Film Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had this interest in films and cinema, and that was a great education for me, a great learning experience.
Mm.
Uh, and then, of course, the idea of being connected to or writing something on cinema remained dormant. But geopolitics at this time, I think, influenced me, and I thought it's time to write a book on Bollywood, Hollywood, and the future of world cinema because power is shifting to Asia.
Mm.
Economic power is shifting, and I would say other kinds of power, soft power is also shifting to Asia.
Mm-hmm.
The filmmaker Shekhar Kapoor, he was interviewed some time ago, and he said, I have no doubt that Superman 8 or 9, whenever it is made, Superman 8 or 9 will either be an Indian or be a Chinese.
Mm.
And they said, why are you saying that? He said, because these are the most important markets.
Mm.
So you have somebody like James Cameron, the director of Avatar. He calls up Rajamouli to have a very long conversation because he wants to promote Avatar in India.
Mm.
The Indian market has become more important.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so India is rising. And in my travels with the UN, I have found Somalis tell me that we watch more Bollywood than Hollywood. And some Europeans said, why is that? He said, because we can relate more to them
Mm.
and they act so well that we understand everything even without the subtitle. So
Mm.
they joked about, they said, you mean the acting is so overacting, the acting is so bad. So Somalia, in Liberia, they would ask me about Shah Rukh Khan. In Taiwan, they would ask me about Amir Khan. In China, also about Amir Khan. Singapore. So in Egypt, about Amitabh Bachchan. So our stars have penetrated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very well said. You have chosen to write your book in essay-based format, and your essays range from Amitabh Bachchan's second innings to Madhuri Dixit's role. What connects all these diverse themes?
I think I wanted to, in the first part of the book, use some star power,
Mm.
because before getting on to the most serious themes about Hema committee report,
Yeah.
about reform, which is necessary.
Mm.
So I wanted to, just like in fiction, you need the first three chapters as the hook to draw in the reader.
Mm.
So I thought my first part should use some star power to draw in the audience.
Yeah.
And so the first chapter is, of course, on Amitabh Bachchan, who is one of the biggest stars we've ever had, an iconic figure. But at the same time, while it's talking about star power, it is looking at dimensions which have not been previously explored.
Yeah.
So, for example, in Mr. Bachchan's case, I speak about how the virtues of the father have been visited on him. He has benefited enormously from the teachings of his father, which he absorbed very well, of Harvansh Rai Bachchan. It's because of Harvansh Rai Bachchan that Amitabh cannot be replaced in a program like Kaun Banega Crorepati. Because one of Amitabh's great strengths is that he is extremely proficient bilingually. He speaks beautiful English and he also speaks beautiful Hindi.
Correct.
And sometimes that combination is hard to find. His expressions in Hindi are poetic. They are derived from his father. So I believe the blessings of his father had revived gave him a second innings with the success of Kaun Banega Crorepati. And that way, so I have taken even Madhuri's role in popularizing numbers has not been fully appreciated. So I've taken a different take on all these stars.
Very interesting.
And that's the reason why I think the first part is a bit star-driven.
Rajesh, you just spoke about the Justice Hema Committee, and I was going to keep that question, but let me ask you the question now. The Justice Hema Committee report is a significant part of your book. What compelled you to include it, and what are some of the most surprising parts of this report?
Well, my work in the UN was connected to human rights. My studies in Nottingham were also in international human rights law. And I received the scholarship partly because of my academic background as a lawyer, as a teacher, as a writer of books, but also because I was doing some pro bono human rights litigation. So books have been part of the story, but human rights has also been part of the story as far as I'm concerned. And so Hema Committee report, when it came out, I wanted to read it because it's going to talk about cinema. And when I read it, I was very disturbed. And I thought, why is there no book on the Hema Committee report? Why was the committee report delayed so much? It's such an important report. It's the first report of its kind. And it talks about so many things which the media has not covered properly, because the media, they like sensationalism. So they have just focused on the sexual exploitation, which is, of course, a very important dimension covered in the Hema Committee report. But there are so many other things about how the extras travel for hours and hours. They are not paid overtime. There are no, toilet facilities for the women. How these dancers are exploited. How the supporting actors, assistant directors, how they are paid very low wages, and the stars, they charge tens of crores. So it's a warped system. And I believe that if we are to challenge Hollywood, we have to professionalize. Professionalize means be more equitable. Pay the people what is due to them. Respect our cinematographers, respect our script writers, our storytellers. Don't just be skewed in the direction of stars. And that is how we will become more professional as a film industry. And that's how we will be able to give an industry like Hollywood a run for its money. Because we do have global potential. People recognize Bollywood. And we are going up the trajectory in terms of both our budgets and in terms of our market penetration. But we need to do much more.
But tell me, are the findings of this report, are they being implemented, or is it just another one that has gone into the files?
I think there was implementation. FIRs were registered. But the point is that actually much of the report applies to all the other regional industries as well as to Bollywood itself. And so it's part of the recommendations in my book that there should be a national tribunal which should not suffocate the industry. That is very important, but which should give a push to reform. For example, you have all these kinds of fake unions in the Malayalam film industry
Mm.
who charge enormous amounts just to become a member of the union.
Mm.
And they instead of helping the staff, they are an exploitative entity.
Mm.
So some appeal system. The Hema committee suggested a state tribunal, but since the problem is endemic, it is across regional and other film industries across.
Mm.
We need to take the issue of reform seriously.
Mm.
I hope the industry itself will make the effort
Mm.
because, as the Roman emperor said, that it's better to raise people's level, and if the level cannot be raised, then you have to force them.
Very interesting. Coming back to other aspects, Rajesh, now, you also explore regional cinema like Telugu, Tamil, and Malayalam. How do you see their role in redefining Indian cinema globally?
I think they have a very important role. One of the disadvantages which India has had with respect to Hollywood is that we haven't had uh, any peer competitors. For example, Hollywood has collaborated and competed with films coming in from England. British cinema has contributed immensely to Hollywood.
Correct.
And Australians and Canadians. So there are these collaborations taking place between the US, of course, the most major player, but also Canada and Australia, New Zealand, England. Not so much with Europe, but also a bit with Europe. So we, unfortunately, our neighborhood has not been such that we could collaborate.
Correct.
Because with Pakistan, we've had lots of tensions, border tensions, terrorist attacks. So you can't make cinema with them. Although there has been some, collaboration still, but in a very less meaningful way. Same is true for Bangladesh. We could have collaborated more with Sri Lanka because there is a large Tamil diaspora. And I urge that we should do that. And we should also collaborate more with Japan, especially in animation. And Japanese, they are great fans of Rajnikant. So Rajnikant, for example, come to your question about the southern part, southern film industry. Southern film industry has, in a sense, an advantage over the Hindi film industry because their diaspora is more committed. So sometimes I watch Rajnikant movie in India, and my Malaysian Tamil friends are watching it in Kuala Lumpur. And somebody I know in Colombo is also watching the same film.
Yeah.
And Rajnikant is a star in Japan.
Correct.
There's a fan club. Where I think the southern film industry is, so I think positively because Bollywood has now started seeing the southern film industry as a threat. But no, it's actually forcing them to pull up their socks because otherwise they'd just be complacent.
Yeah.
But now they're saying that we are doing something wrong because these films are making so much money despite with audiences for whom it is coming as dubbed or Hindi version. So personally, I think this is good, this kind of synergy. So just like Hollywood is collaborating and competing with Canada, so we have it within India, this kind of collaboration that is taking place. And we should also further this collaboration with other nations like Korea, like Japan, and take it from there.
Okay. You also discuss the contradictions of A.R. Rahman. How do you interpret his global success alongside his contradictions?
Well, I think, the arts are such a thing that somebody may be illogical, he may be full of contradictions, but his art is something else because art sometimes comes from beyond. And so Rahman became Muslim, and then consulted a Hindu astrologer as to what name I should take. So Muslims would find that an affront. But he didn't see anything wrong with that. Rahman thought of making a movie on the Prophet, not realizing that which anybody could have told him. I was shocked by the idea.
Mm.
But Rahman has a gift from the beyond, I think, and what we call the muse in literature. So recently I saw an interview of the Hindi poet Vishwas, Kumar Vishwas. So Kumar Vishwas has been inducted into the making of Ramayana, and he's writing some of the songs because he writes so well. And when he met Rahman, he asked Rahman, he said, "You're so modest. How come you're so modest?" And Rahman gave him a very good answer. He said, "You know what you are saying, and people have said this about Kumar Vishwas. The poetry which you are writing, you are not writing it. It is from Mother Saraswati that the poetry is coming to you. And the same way, the music which I am composing, it's not coming from me. It is coming from somewhere else. So in the creative world, these contradictions are there, and sometimes some things come from beyond, which we cannot explain."
Yeah, very interesting. I have time for two more questions for you, Rajesh. You also question whether Satyajit Ray could have achieved more. What factors limit or elevate great filmmakers?
Well, there are two things. Satyajit Ray was one of our greatest film directors. He was extremely talented, but in a way, the problem was that he was too talented. So he could compose the music for his own film. He would write his own scripts. So he delegated less because he was such a perfectionist. He thought, in the beginning, he hired some great classical musicians to compose music for his films. Then he thought, no, the director should do it because I know the story better than anyone else. And then the scripts, he started writing the scripts himself. So I had a friend, Kumkum, who knew Suhasini Mule, the actress who worked with Satyajit Ray for some time. She was very happy working with him, but she was also a little unhappy. She said the problem with Mr. Ray is that nobody else gets a chance to do anything because he controls so much. So I feel that Satyajit Ray made a lot of films, but if he had perhaps delegated more, not been such a perfectionist, this is of course debatable, then he might have been able to make more cinema. That's one thing. The second thing is that if he had gone to Hollywood, there is this controversy that he had actually written the script for The Aliens, which was later a Hollywood production. He had gone to Hollywood with the script, which he has himself in an interview said there were hundreds of copies going around. But Hollywood, they knew he's a great filmmaker, but the studios thought it would be difficult to work with him because he was such a perfectionist. So it's difficult to say, but I have no doubt that if Mr. Ray had been given a chance by Hollywood, he would have made a splash in the world. So he would have possibly been still greater. So these are just,
Very interesting. There's so much knowledge you have on this industry, and there's so much to read and talk about your book and the subject, but I only have time for one more question. And therefore, my last question to you, Rajesh, is, can Indian cinema realistically rival Hollywood, given all the technology that we have using artificial intelligence and so many other tools? Can Indian cinema really rival Hollywood on a global scale? And what would it take to get there?
I do believe we can. One of the things which Ray incidentally said, he said, in India, we make the more intimate kind of cinema. And he says there are two reasons for this. The less important reason is that we are an emotional people and we can make very good intimate scenes where relationships are discussed. He said, but there's a second reason, and that is we don't have big budgets. We cannot create a war. We cannot show an earthquake. We cannot show a catastrophe because you need big budgets for that. So two things have happened here. Number one, our budgets have increased. And Mr. Bachchan also said this about, I think, 8-10 years ago. He said, oh, if we had the Hollywood budgets, we would show them what we can do. So two things have happened. Our budgets have increased. And secondly, there is the arrival of AI. So AI can create all these special effects at a fraction of the cost.
Correct.
So all this technological advantage which Hollywood possesses, it's going to slowly become less and less because AI is going to become more and more important.
Right.
If we become more professional, if we are more fair to our industry, people who work in our industry, if we take the best talent, hire the best makeup artists from the world, allow people to learn, make better institutes of learning cinema. If we have a lot of things to do, but if we do them, we can stand shoulder to shoulder next to Hollywood, I believe.
Wow. And on that note, Rajesh, I just want to say what a fascinating conversation this one has been with you. I don't think there is anybody in India who can turn around and say they don't like Bollywood, like the OTTs, like the reels. It's the visual medium which has always been a tremendous source of attraction and understanding. And you clearly have so much knowledge about this industry, about Bollywood, Hollywood, and so much more. Thank you so much for speaking to me. All the very best for your book.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It was a pleasure being with you. And we hope to do this again sometime, maybe for another book.
Absolutely.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.